Rick, welcome back to Mea Culpa. So much to talk about. The chaos, the dysfunction, by the way, on both sides of the aisle. But I do want to start by asking you, the Justice Department shakeup. I mean, recently, Acting Attorney General James McHenry dismissed over a dozen prosecutors involved in cases against President Trump, citing, and here's what he cited, concerns about their loyalty to the administration's agenda. Now, while I understand it, my question to you is, how do you think that this action impacts the perceived independence of the Department of Justice?
Well, it means that the Department of Justice is no longer an independent agency. It means that Donald Trump, for the first time in our modern history, has decided the DOJ is an arm of the White House, an arm of the Trump effort, an arm of Trump's desire for revenge against his political opponents. And so firing prosecutors who were not there prosecuting Donald Trump because they had some liberal agenda or what have you. They were prosecuting Donald Trump because he's a goddamn criminal, because he engaged in criminality, because of the crimes he committed got the attention of the Department of Justice. A day late and a dollar short, but still got their attention. So I think one of the things we have to watch for here and understand and learn from is that this is only the beginning. He is going to go after the people in the DOJ who, current and former, who were involved in trying to expose his corruption in the Ukraine deal with Rudy, who were involved in the investigations of his relationship with Russia, who were involved in any aspect of the January 6th prosecutions. And so I think we're in a moment where we have to understand he's exercising this executive power very quickly, very ruthlessly, and in a way that is going to end up altering one of the most fundamental aspects of the DOJ, which was its longstanding judicial independence. Look, if DOJ was actually a corrupt organization, they would have gone after Trump the minute Joe Biden sat his ass down in the White House in 2021. They didn't. They waited and waited and waited and waited and waited, and they waited too late. So all of this, I think, is a very bad sign for the DOJ and a bad sign for the country as well. I don't think this speaks well.
One of the things that on some of the other podcasts, Mea Culpa podcast that I've had you on, and when I've been on your podcast as well, one of the things that I talked about is Donald Trump is an individual who is repetitive in nature. And yes, I warned everyone, warned everybody that under the Trump administration, Bill Barr had weaponized the Department of Justice. I was the one that they went after. I was unconstitutionally remanded back to Otisville because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional right, and I refused to sign a counterfeit federal location monitoring agreement. Now, people say, when did you say that? When did you say that? I'll tell you when I said it. I said it a year and a half before Trump did in my book, Revenge, entitled How Donald Trump Weaponized the United States Department of Justice Against His Critics. So when people start sitting there and they're saying to themselves, oh my God, how is this happening? What do you think is going to happen? Understand that Donald Trump is playing from an old playbook. It just didn't work out the way he wanted because of my habeas corpus petition that was filed by my attorney, Danya Perry. That Alvin K. Hellerstein determined was retaliatory. What happens now when you have all of the levers of power? Not like before, where at least you had a House that was Democratic. What happens now when you have the White House Republican, you have the Senate Republican, you have the House of Representatives Republican, and you have a Supreme Court that is Republican and willing to do his bidding. Now what?
Look, this is a fundamental problem we have right now, is that the unitary control of all three branches of government is right now in the hands of the Republicans. And while the control in the House is tenuous, it is still there. and they're going to do everything Trump wants. I think we are in a moment of political peril and constitutional crisis because Donald Trump is doing things that are overtly illegal, overtly unconstitutional, and yet the branch in the judicial branch has told us he's immune from prosecution for anything. They've told us he's got to get out of jail free card for the rest of his life. The idea that Trump is going to be constrained by the Senate, we saw the fact that they voted in Pete Hegseth on a tie vote. Even that on a tie vote in 3 Republican defectors tells you that the Senate is still going to swallow hard and do what he wants most of the time. We'll see how that goes this week for the 3 real stinkers on the list. Kash Patel, RFK Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard. But the only thing that's going to alter the way these Republicans are obedient to Trump is if they increasingly believe that there's a political cost to doing so. And we may be at the point where the political cost becomes apparent soon, but we're not there yet. And so they're going to keep doing what he wants until there's a crisis and a breaking point. Now, look, I heard from a Republican member of Congress who does not talk to me at all anymore. We knew each other years ago, who texted me today and said, "This is really going to hurt me." And I was like, tough shit. You voted for the guy. You're all up on his business every day. In his case, he was talking about the fact that in his relatively poor district, all the Medicare service portals are down today. They have stopped TANF and they've stopped SNAP benefits for his constituents. And this is a guy who does not live in a wealthy district. And he's realizing that the Project 2025 bullshit that Trump promised that had nothing to do with him was the plan all along, and it's going to hurt his own people. So, and look, honestly, I'm kind of here for that because I believe that pain in politics is the only teacher.
Well, what's going to happen if, God forbid, that you're going to be on the target? That somewhere along the line, and again, let me be clear about something too. This isn't going to be a group of the loyalists sitting around the table off of the Oval Office in the conference room,
right,
saying, okay, whose life do we fuck up today? Well, let's go after Rick Wilson. Let's go after Bill Barr. Let's go after Anthony Fauci. Let's go after et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, I don't think Anthony Fauci's pardon is worth shit, by the way, because Trump will bring a state charge against him as opposed to a federal charge. Yeah. And so what happens then? Do you think that Republicans will finally wake up and say, you know what, this is just a bridge too far? Or do they turn around, capitulate, and say, you know what, as long as I'm still in power, that's all I care about?
That's all they care about, Michael. They want to stay in power, and they want Trump to not try to get a primary against them. They want Trump to like them. They want Trump to think that they're an ally. And all those incentives right now for all those people are terrible, terrible, terrible incentives. They're so fundamentally broken as incentives that they don't understand that you can't make a deal with this devil. He'll always demand more and more and more and more and more. He'll always demand, if you give him 2, he's going to demand 5. If you give him 5, he's going to demand 7. If you give him 7, he's going to demand 20, over and over and over again. They've lost the path where first off, that they are an independent body under the Constitution as a co-equal branch of government. They're like, it's Trump. Whatever Trump wants, we will do. Mm-hmm. They've lost the sort of incentive to be independent from him politically or morally, where they're like, whatever he wants is fine. And that is a real, Donald Trump better than almost anybody on earth. And you know that he can sink further and further and further and drag people down with him at that same time. And I don't think a lot of these guys have figured that out yet. They just haven't had the personal betrayal that you and many others have experienced, you more pointedly than almost anybody, from this guy, and how vindictive and shitty and petty and mean and how much he revels in being cruel and horrifying to people.
Yeah. Well, I want to just stay on the topic with this interim acting attorney general, because I read a report that says that McHenry has actually already initiated a review of the prosecutors who handled the January 6th cases.
Of course.
People like, and what's his name? Eric Swalwell, as an example, or
Sure.
Dan Goldman was involved, and so was Norm Eisen and others. Especially concentrating on those um, individuals, but focusing on the use of, get a load of this one, felony obstruction charges. That's what they intend to bring. Felony obstruction charges against the prosecutors. My question to you, what's the potential implications of this move as it relates to the rule of law and the precedent, the negative precedent that I expect it will set for future administrations to come?
Well, what it tells us is we're in a post rule of law era. We're in a post rule of law moment in the country. If you start using political prosecutions with felony charges hanging over them based on a sense of revenge, and I want to go back to this again for everybody who's listening. Donald Trump did not get persecuted, he got prosecuted. He got prosecuted because Donald Trump committed crimes. He was indicted because criminal actions occurred on his watch. Now you're saying that the people investigating the criminality have to step quietly and have to not call out what they see. And so Michael, I mean, my position on this is that the lawlessness is the point for Trump. They want people to believe we don't live in a world where anybody is safe. They want you to feel in danger. They want you to know that if you cross him, he's going to go after you and go after you and go after you. Look, I fully expect they'll come after us at some point at Lincoln. I fully expect it. I'm not happy about it. It's not a great day. It's not going to be a great day when it happens, but I fully expect it. We're lawyered up and all that other business. Shit, man, I've been in a $10 million lawsuit with Mike Flynn for almost 2 years now, and it's pure lawfare. It's just to fuck with me. It's just to cost me money, and it has, and just to cause me pain, and it has.
Rick,
so
I was in a $500 million lawsuit sued by Trump. All right,
that's real money
in the Southern District of Miami.
Right.
All right. Just so you understand. So I understand this concept of lawfare as well as anybody.
Oh, I think, yeah, I would say so.
Certainly. And, and I'll tell you something. It's a terrible situation. It cost me, and thanks to so many people who had assisted and donated money to the GoFundMe at the time, over $300,000. All right.
Yeah.
And what was, and then he dropped the case before the depositions. I mean, this was only to get up to depositions. These things really hurt you, and it was done specifically for that. So I mean, this is what we, I guess, have to look for. But you brought something. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying, if Flynn ever gets to the point of depositions with me, I don't think that's going to go as well as they think it's going to go.
And it won't. Which is why I also don't believe that Trump is going to go after Bill Barr. Nothing would make me happier than to see Trump with this administration going after Bill Barr, right? Go after the prosecutors. And I know he's got an anger towards Bill Barr for turning on him, as he does Mike Pence, as he does the Liz Cheneys, the Adam Kinzingers of the world. But I want to go back to something that you brought up, which was the recent confirmations. Folks like, or I should say figures like Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, and others, Besant. How do you assess the balance between qualification and fealty in these appointments?
Look, I think there are a handful of these people. Bessnet, the Treasury Secretary, Rubio, who have combined the correct amount of ass kissing for Donald and have some basic competency. I think there are too many, the Pete Hegseth of the world, the Kristi Noems of the world, who are fucking clowns and who are in these jobs because Trump likes the thought of them pissing off everybody with their shenanigans. The relative, look, and Marco is pretty collapsed as a Trump. You know, I won't say he's a lapdog, but he's in the neighborhood of it. But he's not anywhere close to the sort of people like Noem and Hegseth and Kash Patel and those people. The Treasury Secretary, he's a guy with actual knowledge of some things about finances, but he's not. But none of them, not one of them, is at the level we deserve as a country. Not one of them is at the level we deserve as a nation that's in a lot of peril right now around the world. A lot of it Trump's fault. And a lot of them are so dangerous and so incompetent and so reckless that it blows my mind that we're even talking about it.
So can I play devil's advocate for a second with you, Rick?
Sure.
I want to play devil's advocate here because obviously you agree that every president has the absolute right to pick and choose his own
100%.
administration.
100%.
Okay. And you'll also agree that 50% of the country who didn't vote for him, roughly half, won't like any of the picks that he chose. It's very rare that you see 100-0 confirmation. In Trump's first administration, I think there was only one, and that was the Secretary of the VA, David Shulkin. I think was the only one. Everybody else had something to say about everybody else. Here's the question that I really have. What if, hypothetically, a guy like Hegseth, who has been beaten up and beaten up and beaten up, who still manages to become secretary for the Department of Defense, what if, hypothetically, he does okay? He does well. What does that then do for Trumpism, for the MAGA cult? Because the reason that our Department of Defense is, let's just say, problematic has nothing to do with Pete Hegseth. It's the people that we all thought were the competent ones. So maybe in this topsy-turvy world that we're living in, when you have people like a Kristi Noem or a Pete Hegseth or a Tulsi Gabbard or a Pam Bondi, maybe if they actually do right, imagine what that does for Trumpism, what that does for the MAGA cult. I think it ultimately replaces the Constitution. Imagine that.
Look, I don't think there's any love for the Constitution in the minds and hearts of these people. I do think, and I want to say this, I want to say this with all seriousness. I hope Pete Hegseth isn't as bad as we know he will probably be. I hope that Pam Bondi, when Donald Trump says, I want you as Attorney General to go after my political opponents, I hope she says, no, sir, I can't do that. I hope that Marco Rubio doesn't go into the Kremlin and say, the boss wants to make the deal so you get Ukraine. I hope that these people would say, Mr. President, we can't do that. Mr. President, you're wrong here. It's unconstitutional or illegal. I have no expectation that they will do that. I think we're in for as bad an outcome with most of these people as we can imagine, and that depresses me because I wish we were a stronger country right now. I wish we were a better country right now, but we're a country that has been defined by what he wants in this election, and he has seized power in such a way that there's no incentive among Republican political leaders or Republican elected officials or Republican people in his administration to say, nah, boss, can't do that.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ali. That's clean, fresh nutrition that your dog needs in 5 flavors that they're absolutely going to flip over. And you don't have to be a veterinary nutritionist to know that feeding your dog real whole foods with minimal processing, it's one of the best choices that you can make for their health. It's a perfectly portioned, whole, fresh food diet that's been proven to extend your pup's life, get a load of this, by 2.5 years. And who doesn't want to have more time with their best friend? So with absolutely no harmful fillers, no preservatives, Ali, it's made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients that are carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world. And because the time between Ali's gentle cooking and your dog's chowing down is minimal, they don't need preservatives to extend shelf life. With 5 protein first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, damn, my dog eats better than I do. And that's probably true when it comes to Ali. Okay, so here's how it works. First, you go and you fill out Ali's 30-second quiz. And what they'll do is they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, activity level, and other health information. Ali then crunches the numbers, and then they recommend the right recipe and daily portions for your precious pup based on hundreds of thousands of real dog results. And listen to this one. You can get your starter box. This is for first timers. Ali will send you out your pup's first box with 2 weeks worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. So listen, you can customize this plan easily by Ali offering 3 meal plans to choose from so that you can go out and choose between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes for your special fur baby. And they also have treats and supplements. And it's why I say that you should give your pup a fresh start this new year by letting them taste a personalized meal plan from Ali. So head right now to OLLIE.com/Cohen and tell them all about your dog. And use code Cohen to get a load of this, 60% off your first box of meals when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a clean bowl guarantee on the first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. Again, that's OLLIE.com/Cohen and enter code Cohen to get 60% off your first box. Again, that's OLLIE.com/Cohen and enter code Cohen to get 60% off your first box. Start your dog's new year off right with Ali. Yeah. Look, let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard, nominated for Director of National Intelligence. And obviously, it's a choice that has raised more than a handful of concerns from, obviously, the Democratic side due to her past foreign policy positions, as well as her meeting with controversial leaders in the past. So the question then becomes, what challenges does this nomination present? And how do you think that it could affect our intelligence community operations? You see, we all take for granted that we wake up in the morning and not expecting to hear sirens going off telling us to go to bomb shelters.
Right.
That we don't have, that we don't have a country where right now, every day, we're concerned about spies inside government.
Right.
What ends up happening if hypothetically Tulsi Gabbard, and again, this is the Democratic opinion on Tulsi Gabbard. I want to then just put it out there for my listeners. What if it doesn't happen? Think about how that acknowledges everything that Trump is saying, that our entire country has been fucked up for a long period of time, that the Democrats and others have failed you. But I, and I alone, can make America great again. What's your answer, brother?
Look, we know Donald Trump is destructive. We know Donald Trump is easily distracted. We know he has an agenda of revenge and pettiness and spite. And we know a lot of the things that he has said he wants to do are deeply unpopular. Donald Trump is on a clock, Michael. That clock is the power that he has draining away. By the end of this year, the 2026 election will be well underway. And these people that are out there running for re-election as Republicans are going to be thinking like, ah, shit, now I got to go clean up, cutting off all the federal aid to my community. Now I got to go clean up all the craziness, invading Greenland and talking about stealing back Panama and all the corruption and the firings and all the drama that you know very well will emerge from this White House in the next couple of weeks. Right now,
and
they are
annexing Mexico, annexing Canada.
They're all that stuff. Tariffs are going to crash the economy. And look, if the price of eggs and milk and groceries and gas and all that stuff doesn't come down, Trump's in some political hot water. But right now, like every second-term president, okay, Trump's approval number right now is 47%. That's the highest it's ever been. It will go down again. It will go down to the mid-30s where it always ends up with him. And, you know, he will spend more time golfing and less time leading. He'll spend more time involved in petty bullshit and less time trying to do things that will have a political uplift for the rest of the party because he doesn't give a shit, Michael. He doesn't care about anybody else except himself. He doesn't care about the Republicans. He doesn't give a fuck. So those people are going to pay a political price. The Democrats, if they get their shit together, can take back the House. If they do, that's the end of the line. If they do, that's the end of the line. Trump will no longer be president with the sweeping powers he has. They will hold the line. And look, Mike Johnson's got 2 votes right now. 2. He can lose. 2. Things could go wrong for Mike Johnson tomorrow. Things could go bad for Mike Johnson tomorrow. Yep. And if Trump doesn't have all of the elements of power linked together in the way that he does right now, he's going to have a real problem with it. Watch what happens when the Supreme Court says, no, birthright citizenship is in the Constitution, shut up. Or when they say, no, you can't ban all this, you can't ban things or approve things without congressional and legislative approval.
Rick,
he's got a lot of issues ahead.
He's talking about taking American citizens who are in prison, bad guys, and stripping them of technically their citizenship, their birthright citizenship, even if both their parents, even if their fucking ancestors came on the Mayflower. He wants to take them and ship them to another country who should house them and handle them. In that way, we don't have the expense by the prison institution. I mean, I don't even know sometimes where he came up with it. And then he starts talking about the movie Con Air with these migrants that they've already started shipping out, making them seem like they're, you know, John Malkovich and so on. But you brought up something, that I want to touch on, and that's, you know, the gasoline and groceries and so on, because obviously his campaign promise was an immediate, it's not me saying it, here on Mea Culpa, look at the bottom, nothing but the truth. Trump said that immediately upon becoming president that there would be a reduction in the price of my eggs, in my gasoline, and a word that he created, groceries. Things which, by the way, happen to be relatable to the silent majority and probably is what brought Trump the victory. Today as I talk to you, egg prices are up. That's if you can even get them, because there's none in the supermarket. In fact, I went to a diner the other day with a buddy of mine. We do this like once a month. We go for our bacon cheese omelet, well done with dry toast. Generally, right? It's the best, and a couple cups of coffee, couple gallons. Do you know that they have a surcharge on eggs in diners now? I never saw that before in my whole life. Gasoline,
blows
by the
my
way,
mind.
Yeah, gasoline right now, it's up 5%. And groceries all across the board. seem to be up. So my question to you is this. I have a question. Why is this not being discussed? And what's the reaction from the silent majority as you know it? Are you hearing anything from anybody? Because this was a very big topic. This was a massive topic that was part of his campaign.
Yeah, look, this was a centerpiece of everything he talked about. This was something that hurt Harris tremendously in this election. I mean a lot. That economic stuff was a corrosive aspect of the campaign that she couldn't ever quite wrap her hands around. And at some point, while the MAGAs will say things like, "Oh no, it doesn't matter; it's all Biden's fault," at some point that clock runs out. At some point, that bullshit meter expires. And I think that there's going to be a moment where there is a strong recognition, whether they will admit it in public or not, that Trump doesn't give a shit about them. He doesn't give a shit about them. He never has, and he never will. And that he'll fight harder for a tax cut for Elon Musk than he will to get the price of groceries down. He'll fight harder to give Mark Zuckerberg a tax cut and hundreds of millions of dollars of government money than he will to get the price of eggs and rent to come down. Because everything he's proposing is going to continue to drive these things up. Tariffs are a tax on American individuals. Those are going to be paid for when the guy and his wife go to Walmart with their 3 kids after work, not by China or Brazil or somebody else. All these things he's going to do that he's been very clear about, there's no net positive economic uplift there unless you are a guy who, makes 8 figures a year like Elon Musk. And, I think that there will be a recognition that by some of these folks, not all of them, some of them will be dead enders, but some of them are going to say, hey, you know what? We're in a box now, and Donald Trump's not helping us get out of it.
No, but I want to jump into Pam Bondi for a second.
Sure.
She's awaiting confirmation as Attorney General, and on paper, I think Pam Bondi looks great, except there are questions about her commitment to the rule of law. Sure. And given her close ties to President Trump, you anticipate that she's going to act independently, or do you think that she's going to become another partisan figure akin to, former AG Bill Barr, who, as you know, I fucking despise?
Well, you and I are both in the Bill Barr fuck him club. Look, Pam Bondi was Attorney General of Florida for 2 terms. By all accounts, and I'm a Floridian, I know the people that elected Pam. I know Pam a little bit. I'm not close to her, but I know her a little bit. She is going to be as obedient to Trump as you can imagine. She's not going to be a standout figure who says, "How dare you, sir," at long last. She's going to do what Trump needs her to do. Now, will she let him break the law? I think she'll try to flatter him and cajole him and seduce him out of it. But I still think he'll do it anyway. I don't think she's strong enough she's strong enough to understand he could get in trouble. She's not strong enough to say no in the end. She'll try to work him through the problem, but I don't think she'll ever really object to anything, even the craziest stuff.
Because certainly Bill Barr did not. I mean, imagine, and I want to go back to myself again, because I tried to warn not just my listeners, but the whole world in terms of what they did. They created a counterfeit federal location monitoring agreement, which, by the way, wasn't even properly lined up in terms of the numbers. 1 and then number 8 looked like it was a rainbow. I mean, they didn't even line it up properly. It referred to me as a her. I mean, it was just sloppily done, sure. And it was done quickly. I don't see Pam Bondi as doing that. I agree with you. I think she will be able to say to him, Mr. President, you know that I am a loyalist. You know that I care about you, not just as the president of the United States, as an attorney general does. But I care about you as a friend.
Right.
And as a friend and somebody, and you've been a great friend to me, because I know I was told to give her money for her AG run when
Sure.
she first started, as all the executives were required to do. I care about you as a friend. And I'm telling you, as a friend and as your attorney general, somebody who cares, this is a terrible move. And I am strongly recommending that you do not ask me to do that. I can see her doing that. And to be honest with you, I could see initially Trump backing away and saying, let me think about it more. The problem that we're going to have, the other people that are around him, because when they see that there's blood in the water like a shark, they start to swim to it. And that's where the infighting takes place. Because I believe many of these cabinet picks are going to be very short-lived individuals, like Reince Priebus, like Sean Spicer, like my pal Mooch.
Like Jeff Sessions.
Like Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, look, Michael, I think we need to be very cognizant of the fact that Donald Trump has a timeline ahead of him, where his power right now is essentially unlimited. But I don't think that lasts forever. I think that starts breaking down sooner than later. And for all of that, as it starts to break down, the crisis and the chaos, the amplitude and the frequency of them will increase. It'll get worse. It'll get worse faster, and it'll get worse more as he goes into these things where he's. But look, what happens when the Supreme Court rejects him and he calls Pam Bondi and says they need to be fired, and she says, "I can't. That doesn't work that way, boss. I can't fire them." And, it'll slowly degrade her ability. And then they'll start keeping her out of meetings, and they'll start keeping her out of the White House. And then, she'll be Jeff Sessions. And there'll be another and another and another and another. And they don't really care about, whether these people are destroyed. That's as we saw in the first administration, that's completely secondary to Donald Trump.
See, because I don't see somebody like Ed Martin, who is now the appointed interim U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C. See, Ed Martin is a known advocate for January 6th rioters. In fact, something people maybe don't know, but Ed Martin, again, the interim U.S. attorney for D.C., actually represented 3 of the rioters. He happens to also be a proponent of false election claims.
Right.
So my question to you, assuming that Trump ultimately appoints him as the U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., how do you think that this leadership influence, ongoing and future prosecutions could be handled by somebody? Because there's still quite a lot of litigation that's in the hands right now of the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. You suspect that all of these prosecutions, whether still related to the Capitol riot or others, will ultimately be dropped?
Oh, I think everything. I think every single thing that has to do with January 6th will be dropped. Every single thing. There will be nothing at all at the end of this that where even the most violent criminals on January 6th will face any consequences whatsoever. None whatsoever.
I want to bring up something about January 6th for a second. So Trump, and again, I want to be clear to my listeners, whether we like the fact that he pardoned nearly 1,600 of the January 6th defendants, it is 100% his right to do so as president of the United States. When your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic with no hesitation. You need it, and it's not something most guys can fix themselves. I know I can't. And men should think the exact same way about ED. But the reality is, you might be hesitant to seek help. Thankfully, through HIMSS, you can get access to personalized ED treatment without stepping outside the door. HIMSS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. HIMSS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. You hear that? 95% cheaper. And the process, it's 100% online, so that there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. And with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMSS can help you find the ED option that works best for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, that's hims.com/Cohen. And the product mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified by safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. And when I hear these pundits on television talking about, he shouldn't have done it, it's not our right to tell the president of the United States the one power that he has unconditionally, and that's the pardon power. However, he likes to make use of the power and talk about the people that he's doing. He called them loving, peaceful individuals. Well, maybe somebody should advise him that one of the people that he pardoned, and how many days ago was it? Less than a week? People like Matthew Huddle was recently involved in an incident with police that turned fatal. He was killed by the police in what should have probably just been a routine traffic stop. Mm-hmm. So the question that I would like to ask you is, what message do you think that this sends to the country or to the world about the way United States sees accountability and consequences of political violence? You think this is now going to embolden MAGA again?
Oh, look, I think MAGA's learned a very clear lesson here. They learned a very clear lesson here, Michael. And that lesson is, as long as it's on Trump's behalf, you can get away with anything. That's the lesson they've learned. They've learned that if you commit a crime, if you commit a violent felony, if you assault a police officer, if you show up in the Capitol trying to kill Mike Pence, or even if you're just an asshole like the guy who wears the Camp Auschwitz t-shirt, you're going to get set free. You're going to get set free. And I don't want to hear from people that, Trump has been so maligned and persecuted and so many people are against him when he frees 1,600 people who, many of whom are criminals. Many of whom are criminals, not because they were supporters of Donald Trump, but because they went to the Capitol, they beat cops with hammers and sticks and hockey sticks and flagpoles and iron bars and hit them with bear spray and electrocuted them. And went in the Capitol and shit in the rotunda where Donald Trump was sworn in, and went in the Capitol and tried to overthrow a free and fair election. This, to my mind, I know that the MAGA folks don't give a shit about it. I know they don't care. I know they don't. They're just agnostic about whether Trump did it or not. They don't really have an opinion about it. I have an opinion about it. I think it's an unbelievable, shameful moment in American history. And I think it's something we can't forgive easily, but he's going to demand that these people, I promise you, they're going to bring these fuckers to the Capitol, or they're going to bring him to the White House on the South Lawn, and they're going to give him a fucking award by the time this is all over.
You know what's crazy too? A lot of people are saying they like the fact that Trump pardoned these nearly 1,600 people. Why?
Yep.
Not because whether they thought each and every one should have or shouldn't have. They like the fact that he's picking people that are completely out of the ordinary for picks, whether it's the Hegseths or so on, because they think that he doesn't give a shit, that he's willing to buck the system, all right, and he's willing to do what he wants to do, all, of course, in the name of making the country great again. And one of the things that they are now citing as an example to why his behavior, this unpredictable behavior, is going to be so beneficial to the country. Just take a look at the recent agreement that was made with Colombia. Colombia turned around and they refused to accept deportation flights. And what did Trump do? Something that I assure you Joe Biden would not have done. I assure you Kamala Harris would not have done. They're weak when it comes to this. Oh, we have to play by a playbook. Trump doesn't have a playbook. So what does he do? He starts throwing out there trade conflicts, tariffs, 25% immediately on Colombia. And what the fuck does Colombia have? Gasoline, coffee,
flowers,
and
coffee.
Flowers.
Yeah.
Right? And gasoline. By the way, our whole trade with them is like $32.5 billion. That's it.
It's dog shit.
But
it's
they
nothing.
were so nervous about it, Rick, so nervous about it. He then said, and if they fuck around for the following week, it's 50%. And I like the president of Colombia turned around and said, we don't care. We're going to impose a 25% tariff on the United States, which, by the way, was laughable. Ultimately, president of Colombia capitulated. And it didn't even take 24 hours. It didn't even take 12 hours. Trump got shit done. And that's all that these people are saying, that Trump did what nobody else could possibly have done. So my question to you then is, what do you think this development indicates about Trump's approach to both foreign policy and the anticipated immigration enforcement, the mass deportation now scenario?
Look, if the objective in your life is to set out and make a lot of noise and cause trouble and cause chaos, that's not a hard thing to do. Breaking is harder than building. Noise is harder than signal. Cacophony is harder than music. And Trump's great at causing trouble and causing chaos and breaking shit. He's great at causing people to have distress about what he's doing and about freaking out about what's happening. And that doesn't build anything. So what happens with Colombia now? If I was the Chinese, I would be up in Colombia with Petro. I'd be like, hey man, we'll buy your coffee, we'll buy your gas, we'll buy your cut flowers. Let's make a deal. Give us a Chinese naval base in the Caribbean. Give us landing rights for our planes. We'll give you a preferential trade deal. The reason you don't just do crazy shit is everything is interconnected in this world diplomatically and politically and economically now. And Trump thinks that America is an island and that just only he matters. So anyway, Michael, it's been great being on the show again, man. I really appreciate it.
Rick, I got one last question for you here before you split, because one of the things that we also notice on a regular basis is the fact that there is no diversity or ideological differences in his entire cabinet. And a lot of critics have, labeled Trump's cabinet as a hodgepodge team, a homogenous team that's, again, unified primarily or solely by fealty, by loyalty to him.
Yeah. Listen, these
you
are
also
people...
see them, right, but you also see them as all white. You really don't see much diversity in this group at all. So my question to you is, how do you think that this lack of ideological cohesion or diversity is going to affect policy implementation, governance, and the way that America sees these individuals?
Well, first off, I don't think that they have an ideology. It's all Trump. It's all him all the time. It's l'état c'est moi. It's the dear leader. It's Juche in North Korean, where everything is always about what the leader wants. If Donald Trump tomorrow came out and said, I love trans people and LGBT people, and I want to have drag queen story hour in every American high school or grade school, all of them would go, that is the most brilliant idea I've ever heard, Mr. President. Let's do that right now. They don't have any bottom. They don't have any basis for anything. And they don't have any ability to resist. So, that's why we're seeing, I think, this pretty terrible moment we're having with a lot of these folks where they will never be able to say, I'm going to put the country before you, Donald. I'm sorry, it has to be that way.
But, we just also saw Trump signed an order where now transgender are banned from the military. They also eliminated all the DEI programs in the military as well. What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, it certainly doesn't engender loyalty by the military. It shouldn't by his Joint Chiefs of Staff. And you know who else should really start to take offense to this? Veterans. But we're not seeing that either. The guy is defying all odds every single day.
Well, it's still early in the game, Michael, and I think we're going to see. I think it's unsustainable, and I'm a skeptic about Trump at every level, and I'm a skeptic about magical solutions to Trump. But I think some of the stuff he's done is so unacceptable and so beyond where Americans are at, and it's unpopular as hell in the polling. I think we're going to see a lot more damage to him than we might think. So. Anyway, all right. Thank you, my friend. I got to hop.
Great to see you, my brother. You be well.
We'll talk to you soon.
I will see you soon. Always.
Thanks, man.